I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
We got more Batman 3 Jokers coming at you with issue 3, where we finally get to see who this Joker is, or who's the main Joker, or what's the real Joker, and what are all these other Jokers out there? Why is there so much Jokers in that?
Now, I have not looked at any reviews or any of people's interpretation or if they like this book. I know the first two they liked. I don't know where they stand on this one. Before we get too far into it, I just want to say, I really do like this one. And I think this is a strong ending. But it doesn't really answer the question it presents. It says at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But I will say, you posed the question. I never, maybe other people were wondering, because I always assumed we already knew who the Joker was, a failed comedian. So it's like, who is the Joker? There's 3 of them. So who's the real one? It doesn't matter. Now, I think that's a little dumb, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed by it, because it is still a good story, and there's some really good, genuine moments in this. So before we go into spoiler territory, I just think this whole miniseries is worth it and really good, even if it kind of dismisses the very question it brings up. But, I mean, I didn't really care in the long run anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it'd be funny if we just went really, out far, left field to be like, oh, shit, you know who the Joker's been? Actually, he switched bodies with the Riddler at one point.
And he got a transition, and was at one point was actually
Lady Shiva.
Not Lady. I was gonna say a very random one. What's a Magpie?
Yeah, just really goofy characters.
Just somebody you don't expect, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That might be the way to go, but I think the way it goes, though, it does kind of it totally works. I feel like it's not one you can really argue. I mean, somebody might kind of go well, it wasn't the Joker choice I would have went with, but I still felt like, hey, it still kind of worked,
It does this thing where it presents a question, and by the end of it, you kind of more or less find yourself right back where you started. Which I think if you read enough comics, you're going to get there anyway. And it does have this whole thing of who is the Joker really. And it says it doesn't matter who the Joker is. And I always kind of felt that way generally. Not trying to sound like a Batman know-it-all or hipster in that aspect. But I never really cared about the Joker movie. I would have gone and seen the Joker movie. But I really didn't. Really, his real name isn't Arthur Fleck. It's impossible. They change it every few years. It doesn't really fucking matter by this point. You know what I mean? So, at the end of it, they do this thing where, even though they have these different pinpoints, most of the major stuff was one of them, and the others just were guys that stood in for a moment, maybe.
Well, that's almost what it is. It's literally the Joker stunt double. You learn that's what's the Joker do? Well, he likes to create a lot of extra stunt doubles, because sometimes he's got these gags that might be a little dangerous, and it's just not worth it. Himself being involved in it.
Pretty much, and at the end of the day, one of the Jokers, the Joker that we think of doing all the major stuff, that's probably the main Joker. That's more than likely the main Joker. The one we think of doing all the major things. Because he talks about, that was me doing this, that was me doing that. And of course, is he lying? Is he telling the truth? We'll never know. But at the same time, it all boils down to one guy again at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I even like how, almost in this thing when it starts off, Batman, because, the whole last couple times we've been talking about, Batman's pretty fucking lenient on Jason Todd. He just, fucking shot a Joker in the head, and I was like, well, boys will be boys. Just...
That's on me. I should have given him a pellet gun.
I mean, I get it, Barbara. You're angry. You're the woman. You got the heart and so on. Batman, he understands that, you know what, sometimes you're going to come home, and that pellet gun you gave the boy, and he shoots a bird, and he's holding it, and he's like, Daddy, what'd I do? It's just one of those moments.
You just become a man.
You got a man,
Give
so
him a beer.
Go dig a grave and carry the gravestone over and put it next to the parents, and that's where you put little Robin at. The one you shot out.
Literally a Robin you shot.
See, people always wondered how Robin got his nickname. Well, because he killed a bird, and I wanted him to never forget about it. I made him dress up as the Robin.
You have to dress up as the bird you killed.
Yeah, you know, like I never forget my parents. Every single time I go down to that cellar, guess what? I put the date that they died at, or the time they died at. You know.
You're this close to being Batboy, but out of shame, you're the Robin now.
Yeah, because remember, if it was nighttime, you probably would have shot a bat. She could have shot me when I was coming out the window. You know, little boy watching too much Lone Ranger, it's a very dangerous combination. Give him a gun, you're asking for trouble.
It was the 1950s back then. We're going with the long haul of the continuity.
Exactly. But finally in this book, though, like, because Jason's
Had enough of your shit, boy, basically.
Jason's just like, well, I did what needed to be done. I just pulled the trigger. Like, you couldn't fucking do it, man. And then Batman's like, shut up, Jason. Shut up. Don't you ever talk that way. I love you. I love Barbara. And I love the Joker being alive. Why? Well, I don't know. It gives me something to do every week. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Like, if I kill him, I might be out of a job. You know what I mean? This keeps me safe. I can keep getting paid. You know, I know I haven't let you guys in on it, but I get a check every week from the government for this.
It boils down to almost being kind of like, because you think like there's the mob boss Joker, the criminal, and I guess the only thing you could really conjure him up to is 1940s, and I guess there's not a whole lot of him in there because a lot of villains. There was that thing where for a while, like they used the villain, and the villain died. Maybe the villain would come back later. They'd have like this long haul of continuity, and it wasn't until later, until they started rebooting and just dismissing things later down the line. And I want to say Joker was almost a one-shot villain, and then they brought him back in the 70s. They brought him back in like the 40s again, but like wasn't immediate. So that doesn't have these a bunch of classic Joker stories. I want to say it was somewhere when Dennis O'Neil where they started making him a little darker again.
Yeah, well, I mean, granted, he was always there as like the comedic Joker in like the 50s and 60s and so on too. Like, I guess you could kind of say, you know, no different.
He's there with giant whoopee cushions and that kind of shit.
Yeah, and also then I also think also with like the serial killer Joker, or whatever you want, the serious one, like that also reminds me of like what law like the books in about like the last 20 years sometimes kind of represent is a little bit more like darker thinking around kind of thing. So, you know, there's that kind of choice of like which Joker you might think it kind of is going through this story.
And then they go down. They basically figure out, like, they're going through the clues, and along that, they're trying to figure out where he is, because he wants to create another Joker. They're like, well, why didn't they make it Jason? There's a reason they didn't pick Jason, so they just keep on going. And I want to say they end up going to. They're trying to, because I'm not sure if we mentioned this at the end of the last episode, but they basically get across that Joe Chill was stolen from his jail cell. So Batman goes and he's exploring the jail cell a little more, and he finds some letters there that were left, like unsent letters to Bruce Wayne. That like half-finished letters never got done, and we find out that like, oh, Joe Chill was wrecked with guilt. He felt horrible for what he did.
Yeah, just the whole time Joe just like, he's like, I just didn't know how to explain to this boy. You know, I just kind of. I saw the Thomas Waynes. Yeah, I knew who the fuck they were. Like, you know, it was like, look at these fucking rich people. Who thinks they're so fucking special? You know,
those fucking pearls.
And that's like, he's like, yeah, I was kind of retarded. Like, shit, I dropped out of the 7th grade. So, I mean, like, give me a fucking break.
Started smoking when I was 6.
Yeah, started smoking crank when I was 13. And next thing you know, someone put a gun in my hand, put me in an alleyway. I fucking hate Zorro movies, to top it off. It was just one of those ones, like, you know how that Joker guy always says it just takes one bad day? Shit, that was one of those ones. I was falling downhill for sure.
Then I hear these rich fucks coming out talking about how awesome Zorro is. Like, oh, Zorro stepping into my Lone Ranger shit.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, so I blasted him. I didn't realize later on that these people actually just did good and they're doctors and they weren't just like, you know, that douchebag on the radio that I, you know, have to hear his voice and I hate because I know that I can't afford a radio.
Well, from there, when he's looking through all this stuff, he finds like a ticket to the Mark of Zorro and to the Monarch Theater. He's like, oh shit! So he knows what's happening next, and then they get there on the marquee. It has one night only, the new Joker, and that's where like, okay, we're all going to come in at different entrances, and they're filming that video that comedian Joker started to film. It's basically showing like just Joe Chill saying like, all right, why'd you do it? And basically everything we just listed and said, but we're finding out that he is this guy who just did have one bad day, and he fucked up when he was young. And while Batman's going around trying to figure out where Joe Chill is and where Joker is, that's where Barbara and Jason get attacked by a bunch of guys on Joker Venom.
Yeah, and this is another one I thought was actually kind of interesting, because like they were kind of saying that like, hey, okay, Red Robin was kind of, Jason Todd was chosen to be maybe a Joker, like that's why the Joker went after him in like 1989 or whatever. And then, like, I do like how they also kind of incorporated, like, oh, actually, the Joker was going after Barbara Gordon as well, thinking that she could be a Joker, too. And then it's like, well, that kind of failed. Then she was in a wheelchair. That went, like, Joker can't be seen crippled. You know what I mean? Like, one time we had a Joker who was in a wheelchair. We filmed him from the waist up.
Trying to pull the FDR thing. Didn't pan out as well.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't want to seem like we were weak to the Japanese.
Well, the whole thing with them is they do this. They make this whole point of like, look, here's the thing: we're your worst enemy, but at the same time, we don't have that emotional connection to you like other people do. We've made one over the years, but at our core, we're not tragically bound to you. Mm-hmm. So they try to make Jason a Joker, but he's too brash, he's too angry, he can't focus, he's just gonna be like you said, they try to make Barbara, but then the wheelchair thing happened, and on top of that, she's also just too smart for us.
I don't remember it saying like, oh, she was in a wheelchair, so shit, we were like, let's scratch that one.
Oh, they could have probably, I'm gonna be honest, they probably, I could actually see them like, I know we shot you, but guess what? This wheelchair has a, if you spin the wheel real fast, it looks like a talking mouth or some shit like that. Some like Joker. It's powered by a whoopee cushion. Just goes by,
I kid you not, like Joker bound to a wheelchair, and he's still a menace to society. Almost sounds kind of amazing.
I mean, I'm sure there's some weird, creepy, Silent Hill-esque shit you can do with that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of what it would be like, some cheesy-ass, tasteless, 60s or 70s kind of gaggy type shit, and now it also shoots cards, too, and just push a little bunch of certs, like a little Charles Xavier Deathmobile type thing, but... That's like that, but I could also see them doing something more of just really
Charles
creepy.
Xavier gets into the mushroom stash that one of the students had one day. Just going down the hall. Oh!
The problem about when Charles Xavier drops E, everybody in a 3-mile radius is on E with him. He can't control his powers.
It's like then he gets on the Cerebro. Don't let him get fucking high and use Cerebro.
He's just gonna go on there and he's just like, my fellow X-Men and the rest of the world, I have an important announcement for you, and then just starts playing Riders on the Storm. And it's important.
And then singing over it. It's one of those ones. It's like you thought it was bad when you got Gambit drunk calling you at night at 2 a.m. Wait till Professor.
Mon ami.
Even Wolverine, he hiked to the top of Canada, still couldn't get away from him. Cerebro was still playing in his head.
Thing is, well, at least he's having some more chilled out shit. Remember it was really bad when he was going through his progressive rock phase, listening to ELP, where he's listening these 20-minute songs.
And he'd do the thing where he would, when a solo came up, he would rewind it back and play 6 seconds of it, rewind it back, play the 6 seconds, but dude, did you hear that note? Did you hear that note? Here, I'll rewind it for you again.
You hear that fucking wind chime? You hear that fucking wind chime? That was the bass player.
Well, you didn't hear it? Here, hold on. Let me turn the dial back. Okay, yeah. Wait, you'll get it this time. But
just that guy. He's like that dad who literally likes to show off his vinyl collection. And to take all the vinyls out of the Cerebro room.
We had to take the DJ station we put in there too. At first, I thought that was a weird request the professor had to have in there. And Beast is all like, "Well, he's the professor. He pays my salary. I guess I'll put the DJ station there." Don't listen. If that comes up again, slap me across the face. I ain't setting that up for him.
He also asked for when we were doing inventory for the X Lab. I was looking at a lot of these chemicals. This is what they use to make LSD. You'll find out. Just get it.
But yeah, going back to Joker holding up Joe Chill outside, which Joe Chill in this one picture almost looks like he's sitting in a wheelchair. I mean, he's sitting in a chair.
It does.
I could draw a wheel on there, and next thing you know, we're getting to the Batman the Wheelchair Adventures.
Well, basically as Batman's trying to figure this out, how he's going to try and save Joe Chill, and how he's going to just figure that he's dealing with criminal Joker. And to top it off, they also have Joe Chill's confession playing behind him. And the whole thing with this is Batman's not really so much focused on, oh my god, it's the man who killed my family. By this point, he's just another guy he has to save. So that's what he's doing. That's his job right now. And through all this, Joker, the comedian Joker, I think didn't he start fighting Barbara and Jason for a minute? Yeah, he did. For a minute, he's fighting Barbara and Jason, but then he ends up scattering away at some point, and he throws a lighter into a thing of acid. Because that's what they were going to do. They're going to drop Joe Chill right into a thing of acid.
Yeah, because they're setting it up. They even brought the Acme acid and what have you out there. And whatnot. He's like, we're just going to create one like it's, our scientific lab, and that's how we make these Jokers. All it takes is you drop into a vat of acid, and next thing you know, you're a Joker.
I feel like it's a combination of things. I feel like the acid definitely does obviously play a part, but I think it's someone going through a certain sense of mental torture and then going into the acid is kind of what makes it. Because they said something about this acid makes them it's hard to identify. You can't identify them by DNA or blood. By that point, it fucks up their teeth enough, so their dental records, you can't tell who they were originally. Also, something to the lines of, I guess, it burns away most of their fingerprints. So it's one of those things. It's almost like a clean slate. And their thought process, who would be the better Joker than Joe Chill? And it's kind of funny they're bringing it back around because, people complain about 1989 Batman, but then you think about this, you're this is almost kind of somewhat of an homage to 1989 Batman when you really think about it.
Yeah, no, and I think that is kind of the interesting way. I mean, I will always say this, the 1981 Batman, the 1989 Batman, the one thing is about that is I feel if you just have that as one singular bottle film, because a lot of times movies are kind of they're not made for long continuity. They're meant to be kind of, in a sense, over and give or take a trilogy, And in that one film, it's okay, if you're connecting it all together like that, I feel it works for that. It's just a solo pocket story. I think that's kind of fine. I mean, obviously you have a longevity. I think it's weird to kind of combine the two characters. But I do like how when you see all these Jokers.
Back? Sorry, the audio went out for a second.
Oh yeah, but I was saying with all these Jokers and kind of so on. I like how they're just, especially we didn't mention before, but it's in the very beginning when they have the whole list of just all these different Jokers that they've had throughout the years and so on, and just different ones that kind of come up. And it's they all have the Joker look, but they almost, you could tell it is a sort of a different person throughout it. Just each one. I even just love it. It's the Fisherman Joker.
Well, I guess that could also brings in at least the way they got the clownfish and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Because most of them are all kind of oh, okay, yeah, these always seem kind of the murderer one, like that. But then there's also there's the city planner. It's sometimes we needed a Joker in council. You know what I mean?
But at the end of the day,
there's the Joker that works down at Subway. Yes, I know. Well, sometimes I want a free sandwich.
So it's probably a lot easier just to go in there and rob the place rather than get a guy in acid, have him go in there, hold the place hostage, and just make me an Italian BMT. But
But the whole point is sometimes you just want to have that longevity. You know what I mean? I know I can always walk into the Subway and get myself a sandwich. That's what I'm saying.
just that good to know that's waiting there for you. You know, usually all the employees and everybody in there is like dead with like, you know, smiles painted on their face with mustard or some shit. Yeah.
But, you know, at least if he's a Joker, he's working for us, so you can trust it.
You also don't have to tip yourself, too, so it all pans out. So we're all basically the same guy by this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very communist system going on here with the Jokers.
So as the whole thing goes on, though, I do think it is interesting how they come back around. Like I said this before, like every so often, like, you know, you read... Not saying that I feel like I have to learn or feel something new about Batman every time I read a Batman book, but I feel like, you know, by this point I've read so many Batmans that it's kind of hard for me to view something another way. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way, or I never noticed that before. By this point, I think I mean, it can happen, because with this book, like, you know, I said, like, oh, I never thought of Jason Todd as, like, someone who is that close to being a Joker before, and like the parallels they made. In this book, there's some things they bring out about Joe Chill's personality with Batman and like the way, you know, Joker kind of functions, which brought in some interesting ideas. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way before. You know what I mean? So, and you know, who knows if this is actually part of the continuity or if it's not. You know, they kind of always go a little back and forth with that. But I thought this story right here, as it goes on, because as shit starts to get crazy, you know, because you think the criminal Joker is the one running the show, it's actually the comedian Joker who ends up killing criminal Joker right there. Like, yeah, he thought he was running it, but nah, I brought this all here for one reason only.
And you know what? Like right when that kind of happens, I was like, you know what? That makes kind of sense, because I almost feel like that. I think the comedian Joker kind of like represents kind of like the good center place of like all things Joker, because you almost feel like it was like the other two Jokers were almost kind of like they fell hard on either the left or right scale of like, you know, one was super serious and then one was almost like too goofy, where I feel like the comedian Joker was kind of about the dead center of like both those Jokers in this story. You know what I mean?
But his whole thing was almost kind of like, what was this whole was when he gets a comedian Joker in the car, they have a long conversation, but at some point he's saying that he's basically saying I convinced the criminal to get Joe Chill, and then after that, once I got you to like, I can never be the guy who killed your parents. I can never be that guy. So if I got you to get over him and save him, then I can be the guy you focus on all the time. I'm no longer your second bitch.
Yeah, I mean, it really works its way out, because even Joe Chill, like before all that kind of happens, he does kind of like, you know, after Batman's seen the letters and everything like that, and Joe Chill just kind of has it be like, yo, I'm sorry. I just want to say sorry to the boy, to Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? Just, you know, and he's like, I did. If I could take it back, I would, but you know what? All I can say is that I did wrong, and so on. And Batman just is like, I know, I accept you. It's okay. And then even like when like all that happens and like a ton of bricks fall, like Batman just steps back like, don't want to get any bricks on myself right now. Oh, you died? Guess what? Who's laughing now, Alfred? And I didn't have to kill him.
Well, I even like, because they show when it jumps ahead a little later, because like even though this book is the same length, it goes by a lot quicker. I think, as you said, because the size of the panels in some parts, and also there's just a lot of action near the end. I do like this whole scene where Bruce actually does get a chance to read the letter, and you see Joe Chill in the hospital bed, and there's no words there, but you see him just in a hospital bed. He looks regretful. Bruce is reading the letter, and he grabs his hand right before he dies and flatlines. Then you see Batman is at Joe Chill's gravestone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that is, because it is that thing that, you know, Batman, when that rock wall falls, he saves Joe Chill, just being like, you know what, I accept the guy's apology. I saw that, you know, he just had a bad day. It wasn't anything personal. It wasn't a vendetta. It was literally just, he was just out on, you know, kind of the streets trying to survive, and then he accepts it. He goes, you know, Batman almost does that thing where he accepts that, hey, this kind of happened. There's no way I can change it. I mean, I keep trying to get Clark to do that thing where he spins around the earth and reverses time, but he says it only works, you know, he tried it once. It's kind of stupid, you know. And Just doesn't want to, like, help a buddy out, I guess. But
I don't remember. Do the movies say like the reason why he can't do it again is because it brought Zod back or whatever, or some shit? Because that the gravitation, the pull from that brought Zod in, or because what's stopping him from doing that every time?
Yeah, because I want to say it's like in the very first movie, like it doesn't explain anything of it, but I think in like the second one, it kind of sort of goes like, okay, well, we got to kind of explain why he can't always do that.
Yeah, I want to say there's a reason for it, but yeah.
Because that's always like the one thing I think's kind of goofy about that first movie. Even though I love that movie a bunch, I just always time travel's such a sticky wicket. Let's just be honest. Like, especially when you have it like in your control like that, it should be almost like great danger and disaster happens like Flash.
I remember because before I read comics, I knew of Superman, of course, and I saw the cartoon and I saw the movie. And then, going back and like reading, when then actually, reading comics, getting more into it, getting know the character more, and then going back and watching that movie from first time watching since I was a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, he does this shit.
Yeah, like it kind of takes you out just for like a slight moment,
just a little. But I mean, hey, the movie is what it is. Changed movies for change, like not just superhero movies, but just change movies. But
yeah, I mean, beyond that, it's solid as all can be. But
yeah. But yeah, I get it though. They're just trying to well, what can he do next? But you know what? If they because there's that period in like the 50s where Superman had like special abilities that like whatever he needed to fix the situation. So like, hey, technically that he did this, brought back like an issue back in 52. So
yeah, because that's kind of how it was back in the real olden days. Is that Superman just kind of his powers were almost like endless. And so on, and then
I need to talk to this dog. This dog saw who the murderer is. Maybe if I could transform into a dog, or just some weird, goofy ass shit like that,
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like, okay, well, let's like hone in on what Superman's exact powers are and get him a little bit more grounded in reality. But no, I do love how just like Joe Chill pretty much apologizes. Batman and Bruce Wayne, like they take it, they understand, and they go, you know what? I can live with this, you know what I mean? You apologize, I understand, we can't change the past, boom. And just even has that moment and so on. And then, as it kind of goes out, then it's like, I guess like sort of like the epilogue after all that's going on, Bruce Wayne's searching up in Alaska, which is actually just a cool shot anyways. Just I would love to see more Batman in Alaska stories.
It's so weird. We've been doing, it's been like an Alaska marathon for me. There's this book. We did 30 Days of Night with true. Frank, and I just got off of Marley's new podcast, The Water Cooler, and in that we cover the movie Insomnia, which is set in Alaska.
That's right, yeah. I forgot about that. Just one of those, it's like Alaska time period. But, I just love how Bruce Wayne's kind of driving up there, and there's sort of narration kind of going over it as he's almost like talking to Alfred or what have you, and saying like, "Oh shit, Alfred, you think I didn't know who the fucking Joker was? I knew like 2 weeks afterwards. I just didn't tell anybody because I'm a dick like that."
Well, I like that
because Alfred has that look like, yo, I thought you told me everything. It's been fucking like 70 years. You didn't decide that was important.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's also one of those things because the look of Alfred, like the fuck, But he says that like he because he knows who Joker's name, but he doesn't say it, and he also knows. We find out that the wife we assume died in Killing Joke, who was pregnant. She didn't die. That he knew that, Joker, after falling in the acid, wouldn't be the same, and she would just be a target. So he basically helped pay off some cops to stage the whole thing and get her out of there. And now they're living somewhere in Alaska, and Batman was just driving in. He's like, and the thing is, Joker can't know they exist, because God knows what he'll do if he finds out they're alive. And if people knew the Joker had a family, the amount of people coming after them all the time, who the fuck knows what's going to happen then? So I like how that's kind of brought around in that way, that he's every so often he goes in on this family to make sure they're okay. The enemy, the family of his arch enemy.
He just goes in at like 11 o'clock at night, just fucking creeping in on the window, doing slow drive-bys.
Mom, why does the rich man slowly drive by in his like Mercedes Jeep? I don't know what they actually are, but you've seen those Mercedes Jeeps before.
Yeah, those ones like like he's going out on a big safari game hunt, Be like,
Well, no,
is that my real father? No, honey, we can't talk about who your real father is, but but why?
Well, you look at that kid. He looks like he could be a potential school shooter.
Yeah, he really does. Well, see, I do kind of wonder because you see this here in the epilogue and so on. I feel like maybe not you know, in the next year or so, but give or take about 5 or 10 years from now, I bet you'll see that kid pop up into some type of DC comic, and he'll be whether he be good or bad. I bet you Joker's kid will become some new character.
They waited like 10 years before they circled back around to Damian.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say they presented the possibility of Talia being pregnant back in like either the late 80s, early 90s. I have the book, but I don't remember when it was printed. It was like late 80s, early 90s. And then nothing happened, so people were like, okay, I guess it's not canon, or I guess that who knows, whatever happened. They actually waited, like, no, by this point the kid would be 10 or 11, so, or probably actually be a little older, but let's just make him 10 or 11 for the sake of it. And then, you know,
he just goes out, he's like 42 years old or something like that. Like,
hey, Dad.
Hey, Dad. Like, oh, hey, son. Yeah, you know, I like to kind of stay at home where it's safe, and you know, I really like potato chips and so on. Like, my mom just, you know, kind of rich. She kind of gave up on me. I had training till I was like 15, and then she just realized, you know what? He's probably safer on the couch, and you know, so what's going on, Dad? Just starts walking around. He's just got like a shirt on that's just a little bit like too tight, and some of his guts just kind of poking out. Like he's balding halfway down.
Ra's al Ghul, who is like the one who basically had to raise him, was basically up there like, God damn it, Damian!
Yeah.
What I tell you? I was sitting on your ass all day. You gotta get up there and practice your ninja training. Oh no, Dad! Granddad!
He's like, I just want to be a prop comedian.
Right now, Damian, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna go over there and you're gonna fight against Lady Shiva. I don't know you!
Let go of my purse! Oh, that boy ain't right.
You know, I think that actually would be funny if, like, I mean, doing wrong, I do, like, when Damian first came on the scene, we were both kind of like, fuck this little pompous prick.
Yeah.
As time got on, it was like, okay, you know, he got better, and he's still a little asshole, but you kind of warmed up to him.
Exactly.
But I do like the idea of just like, he's Batman's son. Oh, is he a badass? No.
Because let's be honest, like that's pretty much like every celebrity that has a kid. I mean, granted, he's trained by the League of Assassins, is different, but like if Batman just had a regular kid, we all know that he would probably just be some fucked up child, because that's what every celebrity's kid is practically.
A lot of time you see that. I mean, you get the ones that come out, you know, we don't know them personally.
Oh,
so
yeah,
but all right. But the majority of the time, you see the ones that do that, like. But yeah, Damian is definitely like. I just think that would be funny. But I think you're right though. I think we could see this kid popping up years back. They might be the thing where DC's like. I think DC does a couple of things. They no, they're dead and they stay dead, and then you know Superman's brought back. Like, well, I guess anything's game. What's Barry Allen doing? Yeah, bring him back. All right. What's it was dead? Okay, cool. And what's because everybody eventually just comes back down the line, unless you're like Uncle Ben or like, well, fuck, I was gonna say Thomas Wayne, but to an extent, Thomas Wayne came back, but he came back as a villain. So,
yeah, you know what I mean. At most of the time, it's even like, you know. Because even like Uncle, as you mentioned, Uncle Ben, I always just think of like, remember like in like the '90s era when they bring back like Peter Parker's parents? They're like, oh yeah, we happen to like be in like an internment camp. How about that? I always thought that one was like, what? Like I always thought that was goofy. That just reminded me like, no, Peter Parker's parents should just be dead too if Uncle Ben. I feel like that's the whole like story of Spider-Man, is that he has a lot of fucking tragedy for being such a happy-go-lucky guy in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and I just thought like, yeah, hey son, what's going on? You know? Oh, I learned how to speak Vietnamese too. It's kind of a fun skill to have.
You never know. It makes going to a pho restaurant a lot easier.
Yeah, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, well, guess what? We're moving in. Like, oh yeah, we took over your room, so you're sleeping on the couch, Pete.
But like, yeah, comes that period where they, I think some stuff. I'm not sure what it will be like. Because it seemed like Damian was a no-go for a while. Maybe no one just wanted to tell that story, but Grant Morrison liked it, so he's like, let me bring this back around. Then, you know, like, Barry Allen come back to life and being like the main Flash again rather than Wally West. And then another example I was going to make. Oh yeah, bringing Jason Todd back to life. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't surprise me if they bring in this kid like. Because I think different writers for different comic books come in, and they like, you know what? I know this isn't the final Batman story, but for me, if it was going to end, it would end like this. And that's what I think. I think for Jeff Johns, that's what this is. I think for Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, that's mostly what Batman Endgame was. I think Dark Knight, Last Night on Earth was meant to be more of just like a fun what if type of story than anything else for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, and then I guess the other thing too, speaking of Jason Todd in this other epilogue, he like leaves a note for Barbara, just kind of saying like, oh well, I know our incidents kind of happened, we're different and so on, but I mean like we're still kind of the same. And then it cuts back to, of course, like Barbara, like you know at some point like the gym owners fucking hate Barbara Gordon. She shows up, she breaks every single treadmill because she runs at like 35 miles per hour on it like she's a gazelle or something like that. And then it's just like that one like, oh, but that's the police commissioner's daughter. Are you gonna tell her no, she can't come to your gym? Remember last time, you know, remember when she broke some equipment when she was younger and her dad came all pissed and he started smashing the place up? He just started extorting the business practically.
He brought in his friend Harvey Bullock.
Yeah.
He started smashing shit before he even knew what was going on. Yeah. He just really hates gyms.
Yeah, he literally when he got out of the car, he just picked the trash can up and threw it through the window. It was snowing out that day.
You give me the lunk alert every time I come to Planet Fitness? Sir, this isn't a Planet Fitness.
Yeah, he just takes his anger out on our gym and keeps calling us Planet Fitness. We don't even have Planet in our name.
We tried to tell him, but we lost 3 new guys that day.
Yeah, can't get anybody else to come back now. So, you know, here I am, the owner, working the place 7 days a week. I haven't slept in months. But yeah, Jason Todd's writing this letter, kind of just saying like, hey, you know what? Maybe you can give me a second chance. You know, I mean, I just shot one guy in the head, and it was the Joker. I mean, it's, you know, like we can get over this. You know. I think a good friend lets other friends kill at least one person and get away with it.
Yeah. Depending on who the person is, of course. There's, you know, not mothers, not father, you know. But generally, I think we all get a free kill pass. Bruce hasn't used his yet, surprisingly.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, Damien's used you know what? Let's be honest. Damien's used a lot more than all of us. and they allow that little bastard to hang out still. You know, so he just keeps going on in this letter and so on. And then, of course, you know, Jason Todd, for like all his skills and so on, doesn't know how to stick a letter up on a door very well with tape.
I think he would have had some special bad adhesive or some shit.
Yeah,
no,
I watched him like 10 pages back just like use acid to like burn off a lock, but for some reason putting a sticky note, he like cheapened out right there. He's like, well, you know what, going down.
The store
to, like,
brand was the only
Tree.
thing available at the time.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those ones. He probably got like one of those like lick it stickers, you know, from like the 90s. It's like, oh, this will work. I'll hold it up. No, it doesn't. And of course, there's like that
just
janitor.
Puts on a sticker like it was just like of a thing of grapes. It's like grape job, some shit like that.
And then of course there's like the old the cleaners comes in, which says Fun Time Cleaners on the back. So it makes me kind of wonder, is that supposed to be like the Fun Time Cleaner Joker? They're like, hey, you know what? Having a cleaner at your own disposal is good too. Just saying.
You know when you know stacking all like the fucking dead bodies and like animal carcasses you just collect over time. Animal carcasses, yeah, you know, you're a serial killer. You start just getting weird hobbies.
Yeah. I do wonder if that's supposed to come back around too. Like maybe this guy finds this letter and that's how he can learn what Barbara's name is or Jason is, or probably just really confused. Like, who the fuck is Barbara and Jason and Bruce? And this weird, like, sounds like they got some weird love triangle going on. And I think the boy loves the man, actually, is what I'm really getting out of this letter.
Because I took it as just it got swept away. That's all I took it as. But was there like fun time cleaners or something like that? That like was that like one of the victims?
I don't think it was one of the victims. I look at the name Fun Time. Like, maybe it is just a normal cleaner, but the idea of calling it Fun Time just makes me think kind of in more of a Joker-esque tone.
Purple jumpsuit. We don't see his face.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm thinking a little bit too far on that one there. But, if it just said, like, Bob's Cleaner Shop, I wouldn't think much of it. I think I would have just bypassed it. But with the word fun involved there, because, cleaning job's not technically a fun job, let's be honest.
And what's really fun in Gotham, really?
Yeah, and what's fun, that's the fun time of this. But if you're crazy, of course it's fun.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. There's something I was going to mention earlier, but let me go on a tangent of some kind. I was going to say that I like how I feel like a lot of times when you tell a Batman story and they're trying to say definitively this is what Batman is or represents, I feel like a lot of times people lean too hard on the he's alone and he's going to die alone doing his job. And then they come back around sometimes being like, he's alone, he'll never have X, Y, and Z, but he'll have the Bat family. He'll have Barbara, he'll have Tim, he'll have Dick, he'll have, like, Damian, whatever. And
he'll have Harvey Bullock. Like, yeah, he didn't really want him in that family, but he's like that uncle that just always shows up at Thanksgiving, even though you didn't invite him.
Here comes Uncle Harvey, and he's going for the gravy. He's not pouring it on the turkey. He's literally just chugging the gravy.
And then he's going to complain that there's not enough alcohol in your beer.
He's going to go on the TV and then, like, start, like, complaining that, like, why don't you have Fox News favorite it or some shit.
Yeah, he'll be on there, and he'll be bitching because he's always putting a bet on the Detroit Lions, and they never fucking win. Doesn't matter. Every year he's got to put a bet on the Detroit Lions. He's like, this is gonna be the fucking year. Fucking believe me, I know it. You know what? I got $1,000 on these guys. Can't fail me this time.
He's like fucking Robert De Niro in like Silver Linings Playbook. He's just like, you have to watch the game with me. If you watch the game with me, then they win.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting so into
He's yelling that to Tim Drake. He's like, I don't even fucking know you. I got a good feeling with you. I'm your Uncle Harvey. Watch the fucking game. Like, all right, cool. The turkey's almost ready. Fuck the turkey. Lions. All right.
And then even like once dinner comes and so on, after he's done, he's the first one to get up and like when Bruce is all like, okay, tonight we're gonna clean dishes as a family, let old Alfred take a break. And Harvey's already got the recliner fucking kicked back.
As soon as you just hear the of the recliner before the sentence is even done.
And then Bruce just kind of leans in close. He's like, well, he's technically not really part of the family, let's be honest.
Jem always brings him, so yeah.
He just says that he feels sorry for him that he has nowhere to go on Thanksgiving. Wonder fucking why.
It's okay, it'll all come back around for Christmas. Well, what'd you get him? A Planet Fitness gift card?
Well, believe me, it's worth it.
It's multiple levels. It's A, sending him a hint. B, something that somewhere he hates. C, he's gonna go there just because he doesn't want to look weak.
And D, I already paid the guy to set up my own like branch of cameras there, so I get the full live stream of watching his terror. Oh.
So I'm sure it was a funny joke. The audio went out just for that joke, but I'll hear it on the recording.
But I can't remember how we even got to this Harvey Bullock Thanksgiving adventure thing here. Oh, I guess we're talking about like Batman and like kind of like the Bat family between Batman the loner, and Batman the family man, I guess you would kind of call it. Like, is that what I always think Batman to me? I think Batman is more like he's like the kind of guy that realizes that he likes to do things himself because he's kind of better than everybody else, but at the same time he likes to raise a nice big family, of misfits, that he collects off the street like wild Pokemon and stores them in a PC somewhere.
Pretty much. Well, in this one also, like, I think that this does end on a happy note because a lot of times, like, he'll always be scarred by the. And obviously, I understand that's the reason why he dressed like a fucking bat. But coming around to the Joe Chill thing, and I mean, I mean, forgiveness isn't always earned, but in this situation, I think the way they did it, it feels very earned, you know? Because it's not like you can't suddenly have a thing like, let me make a little comparison here. Like, there's like, even though I really like Scott Snyder,
Mm-hmm.
and Last Night on Earth, I really like the first two issues. The third issue though gets goofy as fuck, and when Joker suddenly becomes Batman's best friend, because for a while he's with him, but he's just more along for the ride. By the end, he's working with Batman. By the end of it, they're friends, but it feels just so unearned because he was not really there doing like all the shit he did, and suddenly he did this one thing, and he was even making jokes about screwing him over later, but he doesn't. It's like, I don't see how you kind of come back around from all that. Where this, Joe Chill is like a guy who seems like he wasn't initially a bad guy. He's just a guy who made a very stupid, horrible mistake. And he's already paid for it. He's paid for it a lot. He has family. He has grandkids who he never sees because he's in jail. So, and you see that his amount of regret he has, and he's going to end sadly and alone. So, by this point, I feel like, it's an interesting way to come back around to that,
Yeah, no, I think that one comes back around kind of nicely without seeming too, like, pandering or it doesn't seem soft or anything like that, too, because sometimes that's always kind of how it is. It almost like the yard duty comes out to, like, a couple kids fighting, and they're like, now just apologize with each other and now be best friends. Be best friends, damn it! Like, sometimes there's that kind of thing where it's like, no, fuck them. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. But this one seemed, like, very legit, very understanding. It almost kind of has that feeling like Batman could finally come home to, like, Alfred be like, Alfred, it's time to change the clock. You know what I mean? Like, what's a happy time? You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's see.
Oh, yeah, because the clock was rigged to the time his parents were killed.
Yeah, so it almost reminds me like Batman could now change that time on there. And it wouldn't be like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like an enlightening kind of moment. Like, there's almost like this weight off Batman's shoulders that, like, you could almost even have, like, a completely different Batman from this point on. Like, almost a Batman who has a little bit more happiness. Like, even if he's more, like, maybe not like 66 Batman, but falling kind of more like, you know what? Maybe things aren't as bad anymore, Alfred.
I would kind of like to see a little bit of, animated universe, like 90s animated Batman, because there was a point earlier on before, like, where he was actually a little bit more smilier, not to the degree of being, like you said, 66, but like I remember there's like he might crack a joke and smirk at someone or something like that, which he might do once in a while in the comics, but not very often, which I understand. I mean, but at the same time, I just think it's good to mix it up every so often. Like, and I just think, after a while, just like a bat, well, even though you got to fight crime, you got to deal with like some heavy shit. I mean, after a while, it's got to be a little fun, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you got to get a little bit there. So I almost feel like this in itself would almost tweak Batman's personality as he kind of goes on. I think that's kind of like in a cool way. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, granted, I think this is a very solid, like, kind of as-is story, but like, almost if you had a sequel to it, not saying necessarily like a direct sequel, but just seeing where this exact Batman variation and kind of what kind of unfolded here, it'd be interesting to see how he takes that into the rest of his crime-fighting days.
To bring it back around to Joker's family, it is kind of interesting. Now, I guess this is already 2 reboots ago, so which is fucking ridiculous when you say it out loud like that. But I remember, like, there was in Batman Hush Returns, Hush is going after the Riddler because the Riddler kind of screwed him over in part of their plan of Batman Hush. And Joker takes Riddler in because Riddler has vital information that Riddler wants, and that is the cop that actually hit his wife over the head with a pipe or something and left her in the building to die during Killing Joke. So now that happened in there, and this is just kind of dismisses it. But to be fair, we've already had, I guess, Flashpoint, and then we had Rebirth. So I guess by this point, it just conveniently kind of sweeps that under the rug.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, sometimes I always still think that everybody's Batman kind of arc can be sort of different. Like, I feel like you just absorb the stories that you sort of like and you stack them together, kind of creating your own variation in your head of like how you kind of properly think it going through. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's always kind of how I sort of looked at. So some of these things can kind of work out, and I feel you can kind of always start to pull things together. Even like different stories throughout time. I know some people feel like there's got to be this like exact order of like how these stories should go, but I always feel that they're like memories. Sometimes everybody sort of has kind of a different idea of how it kind of happened. Like you were all there, but it kind of changes as like you go on, and maybe some details are missed or some details are added.
I haven't read more on the first 2 issues. So I actually want to get the whole graphic novel, but apparently a Doomsday Clock, that Dr. Manhattan is the reason all the reboots kind of happen, and all the reason why it took place in the 40s and why it's suddenly in the 70s and bouncing around. It's Dr. Manhattan rebooting the universe every few cycles, trying to get it right. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It's just like, don't worry, we're gonna get it right this time. We gotta get it right. I've been working on this formula. We're gonna get it set up. It's gonna be awesome.
Like just like that. But I don't know. I haven't read it. That's what I heard. So I'm looking forward to eventually reading Doomsday Clock.
I know. I think I had the same thing. I bought the first 2 issues, and then I want to say the comic book store that was next to me closed, so that's why I never got the other 2. It's like as far as I got.
And it sounds like it's more of like, just from what I did read and looking ahead, it looks like it's more of like just DC characters interacting with, having to deal with what Dr. Manhattan was doing. I mean, there's a guy dressed like Rorschach, and Ozymandias is there, but at the end of the day, it sounds like it's mostly just like DC characters. Like, what's with this blue dude with his dick out?
I'd be like, can I pull my dick out? Like, hey, what was just all DC characters just walking with their fucking dicks hanging out, just like Lex Luthor?
Batman's I already did it, and I got a bunch of shit for it.
Yeah, go for it, Lex Luthor. See what happens.
You already look like a fucking dick. Just got a little dot on top of your head.
But what makes me wonder is like I can't remember, like, is Dr. Manhattan's dick hanging out with the rest of the DC characters? I feel like that would like throw the thing off. You know what I mean? Like,
he's probably, if in all honesty, if I had to guess, probably like in the black Speedo thing.
Yeah, that would probably make more sense. Be like, yo, put your pants fucking back on. There's children out there.
Or it's at an angle where you don't see it or some shit. I didn't actually get to the point where Dr. Manhattan comes in, as far as I can remember. So, but yeah.
But yeah, Batman 3 Jokers. I think this is one of those ones, super solid book. Definitely one of those ones that like, it's a very good like pass around book. Like if someone's be like, dude, I need a really good Batman book, you just slap this fucking thing down. Be like, there's your good fucking Batman book. Read this. I couldn't see why someone would not enjoy that if they like Batman.
I'll say that I think this is kind of, every so often and we said this when the first issue came out, but every so often you try to think of stories that work as like a good sampler platter for Batman. Mm-hmm. And I think this story is that. Now, granted, you may not have all this heavy emotion and weight to it without reading the other books, but you get the gist of what's going on. You know that there's a Robin. But most people by this point know there's a Robin. Like, oh, this is a badass anti-hero Robin. Okay. And people know there's a Batgirl. Oh, well, this Batgirl got shot, apparently. And, there's Joker. But then, like, oh, wait, there's 3 of them? What? How? And this does a good job of presenting things in such a way where it kind of sums it up for you without forcing you too much exposition. I think, like, I mean, I would put Long Halloween on there, but I think that's too long of a book for a lot of people. I think that's like, after you've read a couple of Batman books and you still like Batman, pick up Long Halloween. But I think Killing Joke, this, Year One, Hush. I think, even though Hush...
Well, I say Hush is just as long as Long Halloween.
I guess, you know what, I'm used to think of Hush as like, I think Hush just moves a little faster, though. You know what I mean?
Because Hush is 12 issues long. I think as long as somebody's committed to reading, you could give them any of those books.
I mean, I think that Long Halloween is just as good as Hush, maybe even better. But I feel like Hush, it moves a little faster. Long Halloween is a long, drawn-out story. So, but no, this is definitely a really good book.
Yeah, no, super, super awesome. So, really enjoyed it. Jeff Johns, always delight. Same with the crew he's got going here and what have you. But yeah, totally awesome. Check this book out. We'll put a link in the description or something like that. But beyond all that fun stuff, go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, old animations, and whatever other good stuff we have on there. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
We'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange Podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comic Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comic Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunnigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again. We're out of here.